Hey guys, this is Austin. Fortnite is the hottest game out right now, and recently I did a video trying to run Fortnite on a $200 laptop. However, after that video, I've had a ton of questions asking what is a good laptop to actually play Fortnite with. So here are going to be 4 of my favorite laptops at a wide range of budgets, starting at $370. This is the 2018 Acer Aspire E15. It's actually the follow-up to the most popular laptop on Amazon that I recently took a look at. Essentially, what you're getting here is not only an update to the 8th generation of core processors, but also some key upgrades that are going to help on the graphics side. Inside, you're getting an Intel Core i3-8130U. Now, bumping up to the 8th generation of core processors means that while this is still going to be dual core, they've added turbo boost. Basically meaning that as opposed to your processor being limited at like 2.5 gigahertz or so, this guy will boost up to 3.4 gigahertz all day long. This guy is also rocking dual channel memory. Now that was an option on the previous model, but you actually had to go and upgrade it yourself, whereas this has 6 gigabytes of DDR3 memory out of the box. Now, the idea that it's DDR3 is a little bit of a disappointment, but the important thing is that because we have integrated graphics, dual channel memory is going to make a big difference. You need all the bandwidth you can give to that internal GPU. When you consider that you're spending less than $400, the rest of the laptop actually isn't going to be too bad hardware-wise. So you're going to be getting a 15.6-inch 1080p panel. It's not going to be super high-res or super high quality, but again, for the budget, not complaining at all. You're getting a good trackpad, you're getting a decent keyboard, and you're getting a wide selection of ports, including not only USB-C, but Ethernet, and USB-A, and, well, okay, I'm just saying all this because I really want to show you that this guy still has a DVD drive. Something that, pretty rare on laptops these days. So, for 380 bucks, you get a little bit of everything. So of course, you should keep your expectations in check. With this laptop, we're going to need to turn the settings down. Well, we're going to turn them all down actually. So inside Fortnite, we have all of our settings cranked down and we are running at 600p. But the important thing to mention is that this is a $370 laptop that we are getting a pretty consistent 30 frames per second in. Now no, it's not going to be the best way of playing the game at all, but importantly, we are actually able to play it. But the idea that we are spending so little and running on a laptop which is so cheap, and yet we're still getting a playable Fortnite experience is pretty impressive. And it does say a little something about how Epic was able to optimize the game to really get it to be playable on such a wide range of hardware. Now, of course, there are some other things that you're going to notice when you're playing. The fan's actually not going to be too loud on this laptop, but the screen's viewing angles are fairly narrow, so you do want to make sure that it's pretty much going to be dead on, aka I had to turn it to make sure it looks good on camera and not to my eyes. But the important thing is, look, it's Fortnite. We're playing it, 34 frames per second. However, say that your budget is a little bit higher than $370. Well, that's where this comes in, the Acer Aspire 5, not to be confused with the Aspire E15 that we were just taking a look at. Now, if you guys have watched the channel for any length of time, you'll know that I really like this laptop. Spending that extra money is going to get us a huge upgrade in pretty much all aspects of performance here. So first of all, we're going to be going up from a Core i3 to a Core i5. On this laptop, that means that we're going from dual core to quad core processor, which is a huge boon to, well, basically everything, but especially when it comes to gaming, 4 cores is going to be helpful. The real secret sauce here though is the MX150 NVIDIA GPU inside. Now going from integrated to dedicated graphics, even to something that's going to be fairly modest like this, is a huge difference when it comes to gaming on Fortnite. As you'll see, our settings are going to be much higher than 600p with everything turned down with 30 frames per second. At least, I really hope so, because I played this before and it was much better. I like how I'm suddenly doubting my own videos, like, wait, this was faster, right? But what if it's not faster and I look dumb? The rest of the laptop is going to be pretty much the same as far as hardware goes. There are some slight tweaks, but the keyboard, the trackpad, the screen are all going to be fairly similar. But there are some other improvements on the internals here, including we go from 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM. And thankfully, instead of having a slow mechanical hard drive, this does come standard with a 256 gigabyte SSD. Get back into Fortnite, and this is a much better experience. So not only were we able to bump the resolution from 600p to 1080p, but also importantly, we were able to bump up the settings from very low and turning everything off to a pretty respectable medium setting. And as you guys can see, performance is not going to be bad. We're averaging in the neighborhood of 40-45 frames per second here. Now don't get me wrong, if all you have is $370, you're going to be able to game on the other Acer, but for my money, spending $200 more to go from barely being able to run the game on minimum settings to something that's going to be downright playable for pretty much anyone is kind of worth it as far as I'm concerned. And of course, this is going to apply to more than just playing Fortnite. So having a dedicated GPU as well as a quad-core CPU means that this actually can do do a bit of video editing, maybe nothing too intense or a lot of 4K stuff, but it is going to have the power and it's going to have the RAM to handle that. And on top of that, all of this stuff, including the CPU and the GPU, is going to be very helpful when it comes to, other games that are not Fortnite, as if anyone still plays those. I really hope you guys can tell how much of a better experience this is. It really is kind of hard to justify spending that much more money than $600 when you can't get something that's this playable. Now, yeah, we're going to be losing a few things, so we're running in the mid 40s on the frame rate. So if we did want to get that solid 1080p 60 experience, especially with higher settings, as you guys will see in a minute, we do have to spend a bit more money. But I think for the most part, this is going to be totally playable, and most importantly, we're not going to die because it decides to run at 10 frames per second in the middle of a battle, which definitely doesn't happen to the other one at all. Imagine though that you have yourself a massive budget of $1,000 to spend on your gaming laptop, or more specifically, $950. With that, you can get the brand new Dell G3 gaming laptop. This is a really interesting mid-range option. So on the inside, you're getting some very high-end internals, but on the outside, you're getting something that looks a little bit more budget. So it's made out of plastic, it's got a 1080p display, but don't let looks fool you. This guy has the absolute specs to handle games like Fortnite and much more. Inside, you're going to find the brand new Intel Core i7-8750H. Now the full 6 cores to work with, this is almost going to be overkill for current games, certainly for Fortnite. So what that extra power is going to allow you to do is fairly high-end video editing, as well as stuff like streaming. Stuff like that is really going to be very taxing on the CPU, so having a full 6 cores to work with is going to make multitasking and streaming super easy. But of course, you're also going to be able to play some pretty high-end games as well. Inside, the G3 is rocking a GTX 1050 Ti. Now this is not going to be a crazy high-end GPU, but it's going to be very much in the mid-range, and importantly for what we're going to be doing, it's going to be plenty for that 1080p display, which I will mention is much nicer than the ones on the much cheaper Acers. It's still not going to blow you away, it doesn't have any like G-Sync or anything like high refresh rates, but importantly, the display is definitely not garbage town, which is always appreciated when you're spending almost $1,000. Interestingly, Dell offers this in a fairly wide range of colors. So in addition to the standard black that you find on most gaming laptops, you can get it in this, which is blue, or you can get it in a white and blue, which honestly I kind of feel like I should have went with instead. But on top of that, you're also going to be able to get blue on the inside, and what is really cool is that even the backlighting on the keyboard is blue. It definitely stands out compared to pretty much any other black and red gaming laptop out there. Don't expect any major surprises when it comes to the rest of the hardware. It is made out of plastic, so it's not going to be the most solid feeling laptop in the world, but there's nothing really that makes me worry. The keyboard is decent, the trackpad's actually surprisingly nice, and importantly, you are going to get the rest of the internals to back up that awesome processor and decent graphics card. 8 GB of RAM, which can easily be expanded up to 16 GB, as well as a 128 GB SSD that is backed up with a 1 TB hard drive. Jump into Fortnite, and here at 1080p on high settings, the G3 actually does a pretty decent job. So right now we're averaging between 40 to 50 frames per second. It's a little bit higher right now since I'm looking at rocks, but this is going to be a playable experience. Now what you'll notice is that while this is definitely not the huge jump up that it was going from the integrated graphics to the MX150, as someone's chasing me and about to shoot me, but this is going to be a noticeable difference, and especially when you're playing other games that are, well, not Fortnite, that extra GPU resource is going to be very helpful. No! Don't make me dance! No! 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 Performance though is actually really nice here. Now the difference between medium and high settings is actually fairly noticeable. You can kind of think about it as like going from a PS4 to a PS4 Pro or something. You're not getting that same resolution boost, but you are getting what's still a pretty smooth experience that is not really going to be held back too much by performance. If high settings aren't good enough for you though, may I interest you in this, the Asus ROG G703, aka a $5,000 gaming laptop that will crush everything. So not only is this going to be one of the biggest and heaviest laptops that I've ever taken a look at, but the specs inside are going to be absolutely ridiculous. Inside, the Asus is rocking the Core i9-8950HK. Not only is this going to be the first Core i9 ever put into a laptop, but it is obscenely fast. So while it's still going to be 6-core like the Core i7 model, but it is going to clock way, way higher. This one specifically has been overclocked to 4.8 gigahertz. Keep in mind, I'm talking about a laptop here. A 6-core, 4.8 gigahertz laptop. That, my friends, is ridiculous overkill at its finest. Also inside this beast is a full GTX 1080 graphics card, 64 gigabytes of RAM, 3 SSDs in RAID, as well as, well, some future back problems if you want to carry this with you every day. It is A little bit large, some would say. A little bit ridiculous, others would say. Kind of perfect, I would say. This, my friends, is the way that Fortnite was meant to be played. So of course, we have full epic settings here, and because this is going to be a 17.3-inch 1080p panel, we're going to be able to not only max out the resolution, but also the frame rate. So this is a 144 Hz G-Sync panel, and we're actually being able to pretty much fully saturate it. Right now I'm running between 130 and 140 frames per second on full max settings on my $5,000 laptop. Have I mentioned that this thing is ridiculous yet? So there's gonna be a couple major upgrades between a $1,000 laptop, which most people would consider to be very high end, and something that's going to be this completely insane. First of all, of course, we're running on full epic settings, and you actually do notice a difference. Some of the graphical settings have definitely been turned up, but almost more important than that, we get a much smoother experience. All of the other laptops have 60 Hz panels, and while they look nice, running at something like 120, 130 frames per second is so much smoother. So what you're gonna find here is that not only is your response time going to be faster, but just everything about it is just buttery smooth. It's kind of hard to see it across on a YouTube video where we're obviously not recording at such a high frame rate, but in person, it looks absolutely insane. You know, it's such a contrast. At the beginning of this video, I was playing on a $370 laptop with integrated graphics, running on minimum settings at like 30 frames per second, and now we're playing on one of the most expensive laptops in the world with the highest settings across the board on Fortnite, and yeah, it's a slightly different experience, I gotta say. So there you have it, the best laptops to play Fortnite with in 2018. So of course there's good budget options, there's some really good options in the middle, or if you want to be totally insane and show off to all your friends, you can start saving $5,000 now.